Call Halayim La Yahweh, Ba'Hashem Yahweh Shai, Wahar Racha Kadash. All praises and glory go to you, Lord. Double honors and respect go to our apostles, our elders, and our teachers, men of great millstone. To you I say shalom. It's your brother Amryan. I'm back with a quick one. As we in the faith have been studying harder and harder in these last days, several precepts have come out among those studies among the brethren. And this Isaiah chapter 11, verse 10, 11, and 12 happened to come out during those studies. Now, I've been looking at these, seeking to see how this may be more of an edifying experience for the body, not just for myself, but also the brethren that are seeking this truth as I am. And through that contemplation have decided to bring edification by going over these scriptures again. Isaiah chapter 11, verse 10, it says, "And in that day there shall be a root of Jesse, which shall stand for an ensign of the people. To it shall the Gentiles seek, and his rest shall be glorious." So when it says in that day there shall be a root of Jesse, it is speaking to Yahweh Shai himself. Now, this is the book of Matthew, chapter 1. And what it says verbatim is the book of the generation of Yahweh Shai HaMashiach, the son of David, the son of Abraham. Abraham begat Isaac, and Isaac begat Jacob, and Jacob begat Judas and his brethren. And Judas begat Phares and Zara of Thamar. And Phares begat Ezram, and Ezram begat Aram, and Aram begat Amadad, and Amadad begat Naasan, and Naasan begat Salmon, and Salmon begat Boaz of Rahab, and Boaz begat Obed of Ruth, and Obed begat Jesse. Salaki. Now, when it says the root of Jesse, Jesse is spoken of here in Matthew 1 and 5, and Jesse begat David the king, King David, yes. And David the king begat Solomon, and of her that had been the wife of Urias. Now, if you know any of the history dealing with that, King David sinned greatly by committing adultery with Urias' wife, Bathsheba. And out of that union came King Solomon. So when it says the root of Jesse, it is speaking of Yahweh Shai, as we've just tracked his lineage. But let's continue on. So in that day there shall be a root of Jesse, which shall stand for an ensign of the people, and to it shall the Gentiles seek, and his rest shall be glorious. Now, without making this lesson too long, this is not speaking of heathens of other nations. This is in fact speaking of Gentiles, meaning the scattered, the diaspora, those Israelites which were scattered into other nations that did not know they were Israelites and found out they were Israelites, okay? Now, this is speaking of those Israelites that were scattered into the other nations, the diaspora. Those are the Gentiles that shall seek the root of Jesse, which is Yahweh Shai, all right? And his rest shall be glorious. Now, those Gentiles that seek Yahweh Shai are seeking the truth. And I brought this out for edification. This is John 1:1. It says, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with Yahweh, by Hashem Yahushai, Elohim. And the Word was Elohim, meaning power. Okay? The same was in the beginning with power. All things were made by him, and without him was not anything made that was made. In him was life, and the life was the light of men. And the light shineth in the darkness, and the darkness comprehended it not. And the darkness is the world that we know today. People are walking on in sin and death. They live literally in darkness. But continuing back to Isaiah chapter 11 and verse 10. So again, it says, in that day there shall be a root of Jesse, which we know to be Yahushua HaMashiach, which shall stand for an ensign of the people. To it shall the Gentiles seek, those Israelite foreigners, those diaspora, those who have been scattered throughout the other nations, coming back to their heritage. And in his rest shall be glorious. And the Gentiles are seeking rest from not only this life in bondage, but looking for the Lord to come back and restore us to our rightful place, giving us rest in the future. Verse 11, and it shall come to pass in that day that Yahweh shall set his hand again the second time to recover the remnant of his people, which shall be left from Assyria and from Egypt and from Pathros and from Cush and from Elam and from Shinar and from Hamath and from the islands of the sea. Now, this also says a lot. It said, it shall come to pass in that day that the Lord shall set his hand the second time to recover the remnant of his people. And what does this mean? Well, what it means is going back to Exodus chapter 13 gives us a clear indication of what this is speaking about. And we'll begin at verse 8. It says, and you shall show your son in that day, saying, this is done because of that which Yahweh did unto me when I came forth out of Egypt. And it shall be a sign unto you upon your hand, and for a memorial between your eyes, that Yahweh's law may be in your mouth. For with a strong hand have Yahweh brought thee out of Egypt. Going back to Isaiah 11 and 11, and it shall come to pass in that day that Yahweh shall set his hand again the second time to recover the remnant of his people. Speaking of us being brought out of Egypt, and this is also speaking toward a future prophecy of him removing us out of the land of spiritual Egypt, which we know to be the daughter of Babylon, America, which we reside in today. In verse 12, and he shall set an ensign for the nations, and shall assemble the outcasts of Israel, and gather together the dispersed, the diaspora of Judah from the four corners of the earth. He's going to bring us home, bring us back to our own lands, collect us up with his chariots, which you people ignorantly call UFOs or UAPs. But those are definitely the chariots of Yahweh by Hashem Yahushai. And they are definitely a portion of this truth. Verse 13. The envy also of Ephraim shall depart, and the adversaries of Judah shall be cut off. Ephraim shall not envy Judah, and Judah shall not vex Ephraim. And as we know, Judah is the southern kingdom, and Ephraim is the northern kingdom. No more will there be division amongst the kingdoms. They will operate as one. Now, this is being done right before our eyes. Now, this says, verse 13, the envy also of Ephraim shall depart, and the adversaries of Judah shall be cut off. And Ephraim shall not envy Judah, and Judah shall not vex Ephraim. Meaning that there will be no divisions amongst these two. All right. And I support that with Amos chapter 3 and verse 3, it says, can two walk together except they be agreed? And the answer is no. So what the Lord is taking away from these two kingdoms, the northern and the southern kingdoms of Israel, is their disagreements. And how is he doing that? Okay? Because again, going back to Isaiah chapter 11 and verse 12, it says, and he shall set up an ensign for the nations and shall assemble the outcasts of Israel and gather together the dispersed of Judah from the four corners of the earth. And the envy of Ephraim shall depart, and the adversaries of Judah shall be cut off, and Ephraim shall not envy Judah, and Judah shall not vex Ephraim. Now, how is this happening? I'm going to go ahead and end out here, by the way. We're going to go ahead and go to Baruch, chapter 4, and we're going to go down to verse 37. Let's begin for edification at verse 36. It says, Salakia, I've had a couple interruptions, which means that there are some entities that may not want this to come out, but we're going to get it finally. Baruch chapter 4 and verse 36. It says, O Jerusalem, look about thee toward the east, and behold the joy that cometh unto thee from Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai. And Jerusalem is a people before it is a place. Those 12 tribes of Israel, the northern and southern kingdom, the two holy prophets. You are a people before you are a place, okay? Now, in Isaiah chapter 11, it said that Judah and Ephraim, the northern and southern kingdoms, are being brought together again. And how are they being brought together again? Okay? Verse 37, it says, Lo, your sons come, whom you sentest away. They come gathered together from the east to the west by the word of the Holy One, whom we know as Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushai. His word is gathering his people back together. That is the sign, the token that the people are seeking to. Spoken about in Isaiah chapter 11, verses 10 down to 13, I believe. Again, lo, your sons come, whom you sent away. They come gathered together from the east to the west by the word of the Holy One. Call halal la Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai. Barakatah Yahweh, Barakatah Yahushai. Rejoicing in the glory of their power. Hopefully this has been edifying. I want to give double honors and respect to our apostles again, our elders and our teachers. And I want to say, Call halal la Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai. Wahar Recha Kadash. Shalom, Israel.